Mijo, why? Who's in trouble? Oops. What else? What else, Mijo? Mijo, he's funny. Good communicator. And I'm glad you found that bowl because I was like, I was looking for it when you say bring water. And it's pretty neat because you could just squish it in your pocket, you know. I saw some more at the dollar store. The over there. He's funny. It's that way. Much crap went out today. So many things. So many people around town that were, head honchoing. Like I can't see, you're such a parasite. I'm not paying attention because I was looking this way or.
Junior, why are you screaming at me? Or at me? Because I got the best seat in the house.
I'm paying attention.
Down in front, but yeah.
I've often thought about the reaction in North America to the hurricane in New Orleans. Because there's two ways of reading it, right? One is Mother Nature has a little fit and
like
sends a
making fun
hurricane
of you, like
into
you're
New Orleans.
distracted.
They went out and isn't
Yeah, that perky smell.
that
And
example
he had
of
a smile
fragility
the whole
and
time.
force in the face of
Like
natural
perky.
power? But there's another way of reading it. Maybe this is
I
unfair,
know he
but
could do
it'll
that
do
for so
for
long,
purposes of
but
illustration. It's like, the Dutch built dikes, right, to keep the ocean back. And they're actually pretty effective at that because their country is mostly underwater. It turns out that if you go to Holland, it's actually not underwater. And so their dikes are working. And so the Dutch were very organized people. And they better be because their country is supposed to be underwater, right? So you better be organized if your country is supposed to be underwater. And so they are very organized, and they have a rule for their dikes, which is they try to estimate the worst possible oceanic storm that will come in 10,000 years and make sure that the dikes will withstand that. Well, from my reading, the Army Corps of Engineers in New Orleans built dikes for a storm every 100 years. And that's not good because we live about 80 years, let's say, so that means the probability that one of those storms is going to come whipping by in a lifetime is pretty damn high, and then, so that perhaps wasn't the wisest of planning, especially because some of New Orleans is actually supposed to be underwater. And then worse,
he looked pretty bad shape.
and so you might also say that the money and time and
Your mom
resources
couldn't get through because she was in front of us.
should have
And
and
then
was
you were,
planned
and I was
to go
behind.
towards solving the problem
What?
didn't. And so the hurricane came along and, oh my God, what is a natural disaster? And the question is, what bloody well makes you so sure that it was a natural disaster?
Who made that mess?
Right? Because if the infrastructure would have been
Who's in trouble?
and built to the specifications that were certainly technically possible and would have actually been less expensive in the long run to build, and everyone knew it, and the hurricane came along and wiped out the city, why do you think that's a natural disaster? To me, that's a natural example, if you think about it from a metaphorical perspective, of a judgmental God deciding to use a flood to teach a moral lesson. And you might say, well, that's pretty harsh. What about all those flood survivors? It's like, yeah, well, the whole flood thing was kind of harsh. And so pointing out that there were steps that could have been taken and also that I doubt in the aftermath have been taken, even though everyone knows now exactly what had happened, is you might consider it a diagnosis, but it's irrelevant because what I'm really trying to tell you is how the mythological stories would line up on this, because you could tell a story about Mother Nature manifesting her catastrophe and potential for tragedy, or you could tell another story of an absolute failure of the human social structure and the human individual level because of the corruption to address a problem that everyone knew was there. And so that's a good example of how the flood comes when you're not behaving properly. You know, and one of the things that's quite interesting about the Old Testament and the people who wrote it is that they always assume that if the flood comes, that meant you weren't prepared. If that's the rule, right? It's like the a priori axiom. You think, you got flooded out? Hey, you weren't prepared enough. Well, how can you tell? Well, you got flooded out, right? That's the evidence. And you might say, well, that's not very fair. It's like, fair isn't the point. The point is, do you want to get flooded out again or not? Because fair would be, well, you better figure out why you got flooded out and fix it so it doesn't happen again. And that's the moral thing to do when you're thinking about morality, as walking the path that's most appropriate to get to the destination that you think would be the best possible destination.